My name is Harper Sullivan, and I am 34 years old. I spend my life calculating what happens when things go wrong, but I never imagined the biggest risk assessment of my life would involve my own family. Last summer, my brother sent his two children to my house while he boarded a cruise ship for a week of vacation. There was only one problem. That house had not been mine for 4 months. I had sold it quietly, after years of being treated like my family emergency department had already told my brother 3 separate times that I could not watch his children. He ignored every answer. Then he put 9-year-old Lily and 6-year-old Mason into a taxi during a thunderstorm and sent them to an address that belonged to a retired Marine I had never met before. My brother switched his phone to airplane mode and boarded his ship. He probably thought I would fix everything like I always had. He was wrong. The man who opened that door made one phone call. That phone call brought police officers, a family services investigator, and eventually handcuffs at the Atlanta airport. But the biggest shock came later when my mother placed a document in front of me and asked me to sign a lie that could have destroyed my entire life for most of my life. I was the dependable daughter. I was the person everyone called when something went wrong. If my father needed money for a car repair, I helped. If my mother needed help with paperwork, I handled it. If my brother forgot a bill, I paid it. If someone needed a ride, I drove. If somebody needed somewhere to sleep, my house became their house. I used to believe that was what love looked like. Eventually, I realized it was something else. It was a system. Everyone had learned that if they created a problem, I would become the solution. My brother Mason was 37 and had never really learned what the word no meant. Our mother had spent his entire life protecting him from consequences. She had done the same thing for her younger brother when she was growing up. She believed family members were supposed to catch each other. The problem was that nobody ever asked who was supposed to catch the person doing all the catching. That person was me. When I was 28, I bought a 4-bedroom house in Smyrna, had saved for years and paid $238,000 for it. For the first year, it felt like the first thing in my life that belonged completely to me. Then my mother asked for a spare key. My brother copied that key. Soon the guest room became his children's room. My weekends became free babysitting. My kitchen became the place for family parties. My backyard became everybody's backyard. Whenever I complained, I heard the same answer. You have plenty of room. You are family. God gave you more so you could share. The breaking point came the previous Thanksgiving. My brother and his wife had a water heater problem, and somehow their temporary stay in my home lasted more than a week. 5 people filled my house. I cooked for everyone. I slept on my own couch. My office became a storage room. On the 6th day, I quietly told my mother that I needed my house back. She looked at me and said that a house that large was wasted on one person. Everyone laughed. That was when something inside me became completely still. I stopped arguing. I started planning. I contacted a realtor named Terry, who knew how to keep things private. Within a few weeks, she found a buyer. His name was Colonel Everett Brooks. He was 61 years old and had spent more than 3 decades in the Marine Corps. He wanted a quiet neighborhood and a house with a porch. We closed in March. I moved into a condo across town. I told my family that the house was undergoing repairs. Nobody questioned it. Nobody visited. Nobody even noticed that I had moved my life somewhere else. That was the clearest proof of everything I had finally understood. They did not know where I lived because they had never really been interested in my life. They only knew where their emergency resource lived. At the closing, Colonel Brooks asked me if there was anything unusual he should know about the property. I looked at him and told him the truth. My family thinks this house belongs to them. If anyone shows up here, you do not owe them anything. Looked at me for a moment and simply nodded. I thought that was the end of it. For several months, my life became peaceful. I studied for a professional certification. I worked toward a promotion. I drank coffee on my balcony. I spent Sundays with my niece Lily and nephew Mason at my parents' house. I loved those children. That part was never complicated. Lily was observant and serious. Mason carried a plastic dinosaur everywhere he went. I played chess with Lily and let Mason tell me stories about his dinosaur. I did not abandon them when I left the house. I only stopped allowing their father to use me as free childcare. Then my brother called in June. He was excited because he and his wife had booked a 7-day cruise. He told me the trip cost almost $5,000 and that everything was already paid for. Then he said the children would stay with me. I looked at my calendar. My certification exam was scheduled for the same week. My work deadlines were stacked on top of it. And more importantly, I had already learned that I was allowed to have a life. So I told him no. He laughed. He said I always said no at first. Then I would eventually agree. That time I did not change my answer. Over the next 10 days, my family tried everything. My mother called. My aunt sent messages. My sister-in-law acted as though the arrangement was already confirmed. I kept responding calmly. I told my brother 3 times in writing that I would not watch the children. On the final message I wrote that he needed to arrange licensed childcare and that my answer was final. He replied with a thumbs up. Then he disappeared. I should have known that silence was not acceptance. In my family, silence usually meant someone was preparing to ignore me. On July 12th, the storm arrived. Rain. Hammered Atlanta. I was studying at home when I opened my phone around noon. There was a message from my brother. The kids are in a cab to your place. We are boarding now. You are the best sister. Then his phone went silent. I stared at the screen. He had sent the message after the taxi had already left. He had not asked me. He had simply created the situation and removed himself from it. Then I noticed missed calls from an unfamiliar number. The caller identification showed Cobb County Police. My hands went cold. The children had not been sent to my condo. They had been sent to my old house, the address my brother believed would always belong to me. I later learned what happened. My brother had told the taxi driver that I was expecting the children. The taxi carried Lily and Mason through the storm. When they arrived, they stepped onto a porch that looked familiar but felt wrong. The furniture had changed. The mailbox was different. A Marine Corps flag hung beside the door. Lily rang the bell. Colonel Brooks opened the door. He had never seen them before. The taxi was already driving away. Mason asked where I was. Lily explained that their father had told them I lived there. Colonel Brooks did not panic. He brought them inside the porch area. He gave them towels and food. Then he started asking questions. Their father was unreachable. Their mother was unreachable. The children did not know my new address. They did not know my phone number. Colonel Brooks realized there was no safe adult available. So he called the police. He did not shout. He did not accuse anyone. He simply reported that 2 children had been dropped at his home by taxi and that their parents could not be reached. That single call changed everything. A police officer arrived. Then a family services worker arrived. The taxi company provided the trip information. The driver confirmed that my brother had told him I was expecting the children. The timestamps told the rest of the story. The taxi left before my brother sent me the message. Then he switched off his phone. When the police contacted me, I drove through the storm to the house I used to own. I walked up the same steps I had climbed hundreds of times. Except this time, I was a visitor. Mason ran into me. Lily approached more carefully. She looked at my face before hugging me. That moment broke something inside me. Because she looked like a child who had already learned to measure adults before trusting them. The investigator asked me whether I had been expecting the children. I could have lied. Could have said yes. I could have protected my brother. That would have been the easiest thing I had done all my life. Instead, I told the truth. No, I had refused 3 times in writing. The investigator documented everything. I immediately agreed to care for the children while the situation was resolved, because the children were never the problem. They were simply the people standing in the middle of an adult failure. That evening, Lily and Mason stayed with me after dinner. Lily asked why I had never told them I moved. I did not know how to answer. Then she asked something even harder. She said her father told her that my no was never serious. He said I always changed my mind. That sentence stayed with me. My brother had not only ignored my boundary, had taught his daughter that my boundaries were meaningless. The next day, my brother finally reached land, his phone filled with missed calls. When he called me, the first thing he said was not whether the children were safe. He asked what I had done. Told him he needed to come. Home police were waiting for him when he landed in Atlanta. The evidence was simple. The taxi records, the messages, the phone records, the security footage, the children's statements. My brother had created the entire situation himself. Then, my mother called me. She was furious. She said I had allowed a stranger to get my brother arrested. I told her that a stranger had simply answered his own door. She hung up. That night, our family group chat exploded. Everyone talked about me. Nobody talked about the children. That was the part that hurt most. They were discussing my betrayal of the family while 2 children were sleeping down my hallway. Then my mother invited me to her house. She told me it was just going to be the 2 of us. It was not. My father was there. My brother was represented by a lawyer. And sitting on the kitchen table was an affidavit. My mother pushed it toward me. She said that if I signed it, the entire situation could disappear. The document claimed that I had agreed to watch the children. It claimed there had been an understanding between my brother and me. It turned my private decision to move into the reason the children had been stranded. All I had to do was sign. My mother looked at me and said, one sentence could fix the whole family. For a moment, I almost believed her. I had spent my entire life fixing things. But then I opened my phone. I looked at the messages. 3 written refusals. 3 clear answers, no, if. I signed that affidavit, I would be lying under oath. My brother was facing misdemeanor charges. I could have turned those charges into something much worse for myself. I realized what they were asking. They wanted me to risk my career, my reputation, my freedom, my entire future, so my brother could avoid consequences for 1 week of his own decisions. I did not sign a few days later. Colonel Brooks and I sat on the porch of my old house. I apologized for bringing my family chaos into his life. He looked confused. Then he told me he had once faced the same problem with his own son. Everyone told him to keep rescuing him. Eventually, he had to step back. It was one of the hardest decisions he had ever made. He told me something I will never forget, sometimes. The most responsible thing you can do is stop preventing another person from meeting the consequences of their choices. That sentence settled something inside me. The family meeting came on Sunday. 11 relatives sat in my mother's living room. Affidavit was on the table. My brother was there. My mother had arranged old photographs around the room. She wanted me surrounded by memories. She wanted me to remember everything I supposedly owed them. My brother apologized, but even his apology contained the same assumption. He said he knew I would eventually say yes. My mother pushed the paper toward me. I opened my phone. Then I read every refusal. Allowed June 26th. I will not be available to watch the children. July 1st. I cannot take the children. During your trip, July 5th. This is my final answer. The room went quiet. I told them the truth. You are asking me to swear that my no was actually a yes. I will not lie for him. My mother started crying. She said I could fix everything with 1 sentence. Looked at her. Then I told her that for 34 years, my no had been treated like the beginning of a negotiation. That ended that day. I refused to sign. My mother told me that if I walked out, I should never come back. I looked at the doorway. For years, I had feared that moment. Then I realized something. I had already survived losing that house. I had survived being used. I had survived being misunderstood. I could survive losing the family system too. So I walked out the next morning. I gave my statement. To the district attorney, I confirmed everything. 3 written refusals. No childcare agreement, a message sent after the taxi had already left. And I told them one thing. I was not trying to destroy my brother. I was simply refusing to lie for him. Months later, my brother accepted a misdemeanor conviction. He received probation parenting classes, community service, and a temporary safety plan involving the children. He kept custody. His career suffered, my parents paid his legal bills, and my mother stopped, inviting me to Sunday gatherings just as I expected. The silence was painful, but it was no longer the kind of silence that meant someone was planning what to take from me. It was simply quiet. I passed my certification. Exam, I received my promotion. My office. Doctor now carries the title I had worked toward for years, Director of Risk, but the most important thing I did that year had nothing to do with my career. After everything was over, I quietly created education accounts for Lily and Mason. I funded them. With money from the sale of my old house, I arranged automatic contributions every month. Their mother knows about them. My parents do not. My brother does not. The money is not a bargaining chip. It is not a reward. It is simply something I can give the children. Without allowing anyone to turn it into another obligation, I also gave Lily a card with my number on it. It says that if she is ever stranded or frightened, she can call me. A car will come. She has already used it once. She was not stranded. She simply wanted to tell me about a chess move she had learned, so I picked her up. Mason came with us. We bought milkshakes, and for once I gave something because I wanted to. Not because someone had decided I owed it today. I still sometimes sit on the porch of the house I once owned with Colonel Brooks. He never lets me thank him for what he did. He always says the same thing. I simply answered the door. That sentence changed my life, because I finally understood that I had spent 34 years standing between my family and every consequence they created. My brother was never allowed to fail, so he never learned how to stand. I was never allowed to stop caring, so I never learned that I could put something down. Now I know the difference. Love does not mean becoming someone's permanent emergency plan family does not mean ignoring a clear boundary. And saying no does not make you cruel. Sometimes saying no is the first honest act of love you can give yourself. My family taught me that a no was something they could outlast. Life taught me something different. A no can be a complete sentence even when nobody likes hearing it. And sometimes the person who finally respects your no will be a stranger. Standing on a porch in the rain that summer, I thought, I had lost my family. What I actually lost was the role they had assigned me. The role of rescuer, the role of backup plan, the role of person who always fixes everything. And once I stopped playing that role, I finally discovered who I was without it. I was not the spare key. I was not the free babysitter. I was not the family bank. I was not the person responsible for cleaning up everyone else's decisions. I was simply Kendry Chi, a woman who had finally learned that her life belonged to her. And that was the first thing I had ever owned that nobody could take away.